and Bruce, it's good to see you. And Stephanie is going to record the meeting so that she can send out a link so that we can rewatch it or send it to anybody else that might want to rewatch it or watch it the first time for information. So that will be very helpful, actually, I think. So is that all set, Stephanie?
Yeah, I think, Bruce, it says I had two options and I picked recording to the cloud. Is that what I want to do?
Certainly.
Okay.
Great.
We're paying for it. We might as well use it.
Sounds good.
Exactly. So our agenda today is sort of a catch-up. We haven't had a meeting in a long time, but we need to catch up on what's going on. And Bruce, we'll start with you on IT. How are things going with COVID-19?
Well, it's been a lot of fun, I guess. Not really, but it's really been a catalyst, though, towards escalating our usage in the district. It really has moved things along in a big hurry, and it's become a more popular topic as a result. Currently, we have all the devices deployed for students, and any student with off-site learning or hybrid learning has a hotspot that needs one. So every student in our district, K through 12, should be connected and online in some fashion or another at this point, be it that they're using our schooling curriculum or they're using the Adventum curriculum. We've got everyone armed and everyone should be moving along. We've had a few new students, so some of those have been slowed here. Last week, we had a couple new ones, so we got caught up there, but so far everything is moving back according to plan.
Fabulous.
We have a new email server that we bought with COVID money so that we could increase the storage space for everyone. We were pretty tight with email. We have been for years, but given the need for everyone to be able to communicate electronically, it was imperative that we increase our email storage size. And now teachers have 20 gigs of space instead of 4 gigs of space.
Great.
Students have 10 gigs of space instead of 2 gigs of space. So it should really allow support for that style communication in the curriculum.
Do you think?
So
you think students
go ahead,
clean
Lauren.
out their mailbox?
I'm sorry, what?
You think students clean out their mailbox?
Oh, goodness, no. And what's students got to do with it? Nobody cleans out their mailbox.
Somebody says it's like 20,412 red dots. I can't. Oh my God, I can't.
Well, so in the past, and so I've relaxed those restrictions, but in the past I've placed restrictions on it just to force the hand of people cleaning out their mailbox. Right. The ability to block somebody to send a new email gets their attention.
Yeah.
It does.
And when they reach the capacity of their quota, they are no longer allowed to make a new message. They can still continue to receive messages. I wouldn't want to disrupt that traffic, but to prevent them from writing a new one gets their attention pretty quick.
Yep.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's a good way to get their attention. You're right, because that's the first thing they're going to want to do.
So I have an obsessive mind, not surprisingly, right? But an obsessive mind, I can't stand the red dots. I have to get rid of them. They have to go. If I have an email, I have to get rid of the red dot. I have to get rid of the email I don't. I have to do it.
Are you referring more to the status of the message being unread?
No, I got to get rid of it.
No, but I mean, you get the red dot if the message is unread, and after you've read the message, the dot goes away.
Yes, exactly.
So that doesn't make you want to delete it. It just makes you want to make it change to a red status.
At least the dot goes away. And if I can, I delete it immediately. When you have an obsessive mind, you're like, no clutter, none. Anyway,
we'll let you teach the next class on how to clean your inbox.
That's fantastic, Bruce. Thank you so much. Any concerns coming up?
I I would say my only concern would be about our internet. So the internet that we give at home at the hotspots, we received a wonderful supply of hotspots from the state of Maine that all had 6 months worth of data on them.
Really?
And the intention was to start that in the spring, but unfortunately they didn't deliver them to us till like 10 days before school got out. And so we deployed quite a few then because we wanted to make sure that the seniors had what they needed in order to get done with their school year. And then I tried to get them all turned off for the summer so that we could save the time on them. But my concern moving forward here is if the world doesn't start to pick up speed and spin normally again, that 6 months worth of time will not suffice us for the remainder of the school year. So I've been trying hard to make sure I save half of those devices so that if we have to redeploy halfway through the year, we can renew the amount of data they have. But otherwise, we will end up in a position where we need to add service to a bunch of devices to continue the internet piece. I think that this also puts us in a situation of how do we ever go back from not providing hotspots? You know, we've talked about hotspots for years.
Yes.
Trying to get people internet at home, and now that the state has opened the can of worms and we've got people dependent on it, I wonder how we don't continue to budget for it in future years ourselves in order to ensure that this program continues, because we are getting a lot of traffic with everyone being online right now and certainly not wanting to disrupt that. It does concern me, though, that some people have internet and have chosen to disconnect their internet knowing that the school has an opportunity for them. So it is a double-edged sword.
It is. How many hotspots are we using?
Currently, we have, I think, 54 of them deployed. That was a number I had last week. I don't know that number fresh today, but last week it was at 54.
Wow. Well, I can
Chelsea,
see what,
did you have your hand raised?
yeah.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. So one, I'm curious what the costs for the internet are if we have to provide it short-term or long-term. And then I'm also curious, there's a cap on it, right? So there's a limit to how much can actually be used. I'm curious what that cap is. For instance, is it enough for like everyday internet use, or is it more geared towards curriculum use?
So actually, because our devices are provided by Verizon, as opposed to US Cellular, Verizon identifies us as a federal account, and our devices are truly unlimited to the full extent of the term, not just partially unlimited, maybe unlimited, unlimited for a little while, slowly unlimited. No, truly unlimited.
Got it.
Those devices that we got from the state, actually, the state negotiated a really good deal, and I'm trying to make sure that if we have to go down that road, that we get that same deal. Currently, on our regular RSU13 Verizon account, those hotspots are $37 a month. But the state got a deal with them for 6 months for $120. So that's $12 a month.
Yeah.
So for $20 a month for truly unlimited, not slowly unlimited data, that is a great, great deal.
Yeah, can we do that for my house?
See, that's what's happening, Chelsea.
Well, honestly, I mean, I can kind of see it. If people are having trouble paying food and they have a device, why would you do it? It doesn't seem like it's necessarily impacting us in a way that we wouldn't be impacted otherwise. Or it's hard to see if that's happening yet.
Right. Well, it would take some time to find that.
Yeah.
That's fascinating, though, Bruce. That
It would
really
be
is a good deal.
wonderful. It would be wonderful if the state had some sort of an agency that would allow you to take advantage of their volume buying as a resident, you know, and have maybe people that qualify for main care or something have an option to be able to get a 6-month hotspot for $120. That would be a really good initiative by the state.
Yeah, it sure
Is anyone
would.
working on that?
I'm
Is
sorry.
anyone working on that?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Should tell someone. It is a good
I
idea.
just did. I told Lauren. He's going to tell his wife.
I'm Dylan. See what
Yeah,
happens.
no, it's a great idea. And of course, with state budgets the way they are, they'd probably not be too excited. But anyway, thank you. I'm glad. Thank you for all your work you did this summer.
So what?
Well, my team did a lot of work. They've really pushed hard, and the integrators have pushed hard. The integrators spent a lot of time this summer developing training videos for teachers. We've created a YouTube channel with an archive of those training videos so that people can play them on demand instead of having an organized training session without social distancing and things like that. So absolutely, it's been tremendous to see the amount of effort put in by a lot of people in order to get us where we are, but we are going well.
Well, please thank all of them for us because it's critical
I
to
will.
what's
Thank
going
you.
on right now. Please do that because you're very, very important people. Anybody else have any other questions for Bruce at this moment?
I do like, Bruce, do we have any students who have a hotspot, but they're not close enough to a tower? They can't get on.
So we do have one household that is having a problem with that. I would imagine that that number might be greater than one, but there is one household. I'm familiar with the parents outside of work. They live in Owl's Head, and their Verizon signal is pretty poor. And the state is trying to get us a avenue to swap out some Verizon ones for US cellular ones. The downside of that, though, would be that the US cellular ones are not truly unlimited.
Okay.
But,
Gee, I wonder where they are in Owl's Head.
um,
That's interesting.
yeah, I don't know their exact address. They moved like 2 years ago, but he's been a friend of mine. He actually works in the computer industry himself as well. So we've had good conversation on the topic, and he understands where we're at with it. So he's not one that's going to squawk a lot about it right now because he understands. He and I speak well on the topic. So I'm trying. The state came out with a program last Wednesday. They said, get us all your names by Friday and we'll see what we can do to get you US Cellular. And at that point, we couldn't survey the entire district in one day's time to find out who we needed. So I've got him going down that road, and hopefully they'll provide us another opportunity or continue that opportunity.
One more question. Are the hotspots open internet devices or closed only to the RSU13 user?
So the devices by default are configured through a security suite that they provide us. And some of the devices are also tablets. They initially sent us tablets that had cellular activity and a Wi-Fi card, and you could make the tablet a hotspot.
Okay.
We utilized their security suite in order to lock that tablet right down to do nothing but be a hotspot. I didn't want it to be a tablet for fear of breakage. If it was something that someone wanted to use on the couch, then it would become a problem. I wanted it to be something that sat up on a shelf and would not get broken as a result. So we locked it right down. They also sent us regular hotspots too as well. And so they are password protected on the Wi-Fi connection, but that password is on the screen. So certainly anyone in the household can read the screen, and certainly any student can tell his best friend next door as well. The range of that Wi-Fi card is pretty terrible, though, if you try to say you're going to go outside the house and get access to it. So I don't think that there'll be a lot of outside the house traffic on it. But
okay, just checking. All right.
Right. Yeah, that makes good sense, and it's a good safety thing too. If there are no more questions, Stephanie, and thank you so much and all your folks for working way above How are things going?
Not gonna lie, there's been so much work. And I sort of did the flipped classroom model on you guys. I gave you all the information, a lot of detailed information. John said, just send him 2 paragraphs, let him know how things are going. I was like, there's so much background to it that it's really challenging to do that. So after I thought about it, I just figured it would be helpful for you guys to really see the whole timeline, because I know that you know certainly when your meetings were, but all of the behind the scenes, you know, it's pretty intricate. And so I do have a family question that I'll share with you that I've been very transparent. Like I said at the last board meeting, every single family that has called or reached out or emailed in any way, usually not only do I return the emails, but I usually try to call them as well, especially if they have concerns, just so I have an opportunity to talk with them in person. But this particular concern, I told the parent, because she's also helping to run the Facebook offsite learning group, that I would bring this to this group. I just also shared that I'm not really sure what I can bring for a resolution, because from my end, I don't see an easy resolution. I see, I think I'll explain that more maybe once I answer any of your questions. And I can share what the question was and then really what my response to it is, and see if you guys have any further input. And maybe before I jump into any questions that you might have, what I couldn't describe in the email is what the program looks like. And I've got to be sort of careful because I don't want to get into this window with any student names, but I can show you. Can you guys see on my screen where it says Art of the Community?
Yes.
Okay. So the first thing that our K-5 students go into is something called Exact Path Math and Exact Path Reading. The first thing that they do in each of those pathways is to take a diagnostic assessment. And the diagnostic assessment is a computer adaptive test where the questions get increasingly more difficult. And as students get questions right, the questions get harder. As they start getting them wrong, it quickly tapers off and then puts them on a learning path that's supposed to sort of be their just right placement. We told parents, don't help your kids because then they're going to be placed in a pathway that's too hard. And I think for the most part, students were placed appropriately, because I really haven't heard any complaints or issues about this particular component of the platform. So once students take the assessment, they get into this really gamified learning path. This is a math example. Students at all levels, K through 5, have access to the text-to-speech feature. So I'll just play this so that
each square measures 1 square inch. Count the square inches to find the area of the rectangle.
And when they first click on the page, it gives a little story, like a little background, like this one had to do with art of the community. So there was a little bit of narration at the beginning about like a public mural and how much space might be needed. So there's a little bit of trying to make the problem realistic. And this is a math problem where they have to figure out area. And so when the student counts the boxes, on their iPad, this is all clickable on the iPad. Of course, I'm on my computer, but once they're in Chrome on their iPad, we found Chrome works much better for this than Safari, but they put in their answer and then they would click done, or if they're unsure, they can clear their answer and they can put in the answer that they think is correct. I'm not gonna click done because I'm actually in a student's account. That's one of the great things about being a site coordinator. We have learning liaisons in every school and they can all go into a student's account. If a parent reaches out to the learning liaison and says, they're stuck, this is glitching, I'm having a problem, we can go directly into the student's account because it's all web-based. And that's actually how I figured out that Safari is not the platform to use. It should be Chrome. We were realizing that it was just really glitchy in Safari. So we were able to make that recommendation to parents. I'm gonna jump out of here just for a minute and see if I can get it into the Calvert learning, because this is Exact Path. But Calvert learning takes students into their actual courses themselves. And today we were told that all of the students would have their teacher of record assigned to them. That hasn't happened yet. Granted, the day's not over. I called the company last night and they said, yep, we're still working. Yep, you guys are on the list. And they have been very transparent with us as well. It looks like I'm not sure if I can get in here in a way that doesn't show the student's name, but maybe what I can do is I can take a quick screenshot just so that you guys can get an idea of what this looks like. So let me do that. All right, I'm going to share my screen. And see if it will let me share a screenshot. All right. Are you
There
guys
we
able
go.
to see this?
Yes.
Okay. So when I go into Calvert Learning as a student, I would click on any of my courses. Any course that they click on to launch will take them to the same place where basically they see a schedule. And I can't click on any of these because I just took the screenshot of this. But the student will see a daily schedule. And as soon as they work through what they've done in day 1, it opens up day 2. Maybe they don't work on all of their content in day 2. I can tell that this student really likes their art history, and they've worked ahead on their art history and got really excited. They've already completed 4 days worth of art history assignments and learning. So each time that they have a day's worth of material, they click into the link and it takes them to either the assignment or sometimes there's a video lesson, sometimes there's a problem that they have to solve. There's all different types of learning that they can do, and you can actually go in and see an overview of each unit. There's different approaches to the unit where sometimes it's practice, sometimes it's problem solving, and sometimes it's performance. By the time they get to the end of the unit, they've got to perform to show what they actually know. And so every day, the first screen that they can log into when they're going into their actual courses looks just like this, and they can launch right into their daily assignments from here. And then that helps them sort of keep on pace so that they know really what's expected of them each day in those courses. Even though they don't have a teacher of record assigned to those courses yet, really all that that means at this point is that they're completing assessments, but there's no teacher on the other end to grade those assessments yet. Most of the assessments are auto-scored. About 80% of the work is automatically scored, and then the other 20% would be scored by a teacher of record. So we're early enough in the year that that's really not going to cause any problems for these students. And like I said, they should be assigned their teacher of record today. The other thing that the teacher of record will do, and we've already started seeing this in our 6 through 12, I'll stop sharing my screen so I can see all of you, is live lessons. So I didn't realize at first that we would have that possibility of live lessons. They do have daily live help available for students, but then they also offer live lessons that are scheduled throughout the week. It might be once a week. I think for our K-5 learners, it's going to be a little more frequent, but I'm not 100% clear on what that looks like right now. But they really want that teacher connection with the students so that they have more of an opportunity to have a little bit of that face time with the teacher. So once our K-5 students have been assigned their teacher of record, I'll have a little bit more detail on that. But certainly it's been a learning experience for myself. It's been a learning experience for our families. And you know, we've been very transparent with families saying we're learning right along with you. We're trying our best to stay one step ahead of you so that you know, we can answer any of your questions. And I think we've been able to address questions. There are things that we can't address and that we can't resolve. So for example, the parents that call and say, it's really hard to juggle, you know, 2 kids that are learning at home plus 2 toddlers that I have that are running around. And I don't, you know, I don't disagree. I'm sure that is very hard to juggle. And so it's things like that that I know that parents have been feeling some frustration with. You know, just sort of the daily life struggle of there's no great answer. You send your child to school and it's wonderful because they get to be in person, but they are wearing a mask all day. You know, you choose the learning at home and you do still have some connection to RSU13, but it's a different curriculum and they're learning online, and it does take a parent really sitting there, especially for the young ones, and supporting them through it. And then, you know, the other option is homeschool. And we've had families that have chosen that as well, where They have more freedom and flexibility to choose whatever curriculum they want, but we're not paying for it. And, you know, they're the ones solely delivering it. So there's no great option across the board. And I think that that's been really challenging for our families too. We've got some very savvy families out there that have been posting things online about you can print out the lessons so that you've got some print copies that are available and that students can work through, you know, if they really prefer that fine motor of work of writing it as opposed to only working on their tablet. They've been sharing a lot of tips and tricks with each other. But the question that was shared to me was about, is there any way that we can just have teachers post from our RSU things that they're working on in the classroom so that others at home can keep up, and then just send home the quizzes and tests. And what I shared with this parent, and she said there's others involved that would really like, you know, to have that as a resolution as well. We don't really function that way. You know, part of the art and science of teaching is being able to work with a curriculum and be able to tailor it to your students that are in front of you within your class. And, you know, even the Reading Street curriculum, which is a purchased curriculum, teachers, when they assign those assessments, can change around what they want to include in that assessment to tailor it specifically to their students. So there really wouldn't be a way to just take that and have students at home take that same assessment. And I would really caution against that too, because students aren't learning the same exact material through the Calvert courseware. And this seems to be more of a request from K-5, I think, than the other grade levels. But I think it's, again, just really parents wanting that, wanting those materials that are print materials and wanting to know that they're working on the same thing that their peers are working on in the classroom. And I just don't feel like there is a feasible way to make that happen. And I don't really know what else to share with those parents, you know, besides to say that they certainly can supplement with things outside of what we're offering with the Adventum curriculum. I have shared the main Moose modules. It's another online component because, again, that's what we have available to us. We have the technology that we're providing, and we have curriculum materials that we're providing, but I'm not sure where else I can go from there. So I think that's really probably been the biggest complaint, that I was asked to bring that to this group, and I'm sure that you guys have your questions as well. So,
Stephanie, how many people are actually doing homeschooling?
I think we have about 40 on our list, but about 20 of those are families, and I think that's 40 families, not students. I think I think that was by family, so there might be multiple students. I haven't run down and done a double check of that, only because I'm still trying to make sure that we have all of the paperwork in place for that. And there are some families that have said that they're homeschooling, but we haven't received all of the paperwork yet. So we're still sort of in a waiting pattern with some of those pieces. But I think my most recent understanding is we have about 40 families, and about 20 of those families are return homeschool families. So they're not, you know, they're not new to homeschooling. They've been homeschooling their children for years.
Are you having much switch over? I know there was a deadline last week, I believe. Have you had any requests after the deadline?
Not for the Adventum courseware. So we stopped enrolling on Friday, and I have had a couple of principals ask me, you know, are we going to enroll anybody else? And we're not going to at this point, because we don't want students to get to a point where they're going to run out of time, you know, to start the courseware and get to the end of the semester. So we're not enrolling in Adventum anymore at this point. We are allowing students to switch back to in-person if the family decides that that's the best choice for them. So there's certainly an open door there. For ads and drops, we've had a significant number of ads and a significant number of drops. And shockingly, it's still, I mean, we're pretty much broken even from the first day that I made the purchase. We're at 186 students who are doing off-site learning. And I think, let me just see if I can pull up my exact numbers here.
That's really interesting.
It is. I'm sort of amazed how it's worked out that way. We've had some schools with, 0 changes. Thomaston Grammar School has had 25 from the start, 25 now, no families dropped, no families added. And then we've had other schools with a lot of change. So I'm just seeing if I can pull up my exact numbers here. I just updated these this morning. And all of our students that dropped, I dropped them off of Adventum. So even though they may have been uploaded to begin with, I dropped them off so that we're not paying for those extra licenses. So we've had a total of 27 adds and 33 drops.
Wow.
Things. One is, Stephanie, do you think you could do a review of this at our next board workshop on the 15th of October? Like, I think it'd be great if all board members understood basically what online learning is. Just a quick tutorial, half hour, then we can ask questions for like an hour and be done. But I mean, it's just great to see every board member to see what parents and kids are seeing, because we know we've heard it and we approved it, but with us to see it in action would be really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can be better prepared with screenshots. I didn't think through carefully that we're recording this and we don't want all those kiddo names on there. So I will make sure that I've got plenty of screenshots to share that don't include any, identifying information. But when is your next workshop?
October 15th, Thursday, October 15th at 6:30. John, you good with that?
Yep, I'm good.
Okay.
Great.
Remind me, Lauren, what time does that usually start?
6:30.
6:30.
Right.
And is that going to be in person?
No.
No.
Online. Okay.
Yeah, Zoomy. The other quick thing is, and it's quick, is that if we were to shut down for 2 months, would everybody go to Adventum or
No.
not?
No, that's a really good question. I had a family that I talked to today who she was sort of on the fence. She's like, I don't know, I kind of want to send them back in person, but I'm nervous too. And, this was one of those parents with the conundrum of trying to juggle everything at home. That's really what one of the broader issues was. And so she said, well, once you guys shut down anyways, won't everybody go to this? And I said, no. When we do a full remote, when we're red and we're required to shut down our schools, we go to our red plan where all of our teachers will be remote teachers and all of our students will be remote learners learning with their teacher that they've been with in person and following our curriculum. Our offsite learners will remain as offsite learners and they will continue with their Adventum curriculum.
Okay.
Got it.
Great. So how are we doing with the schools? Are we all healthy?
So far, so good. I can't believe how smooth the in-person learning has gone. I mean, I'm really appreciative because the offsite has truly taken up, more than just my work time in any type of a regular week for the past 3 weeks. It's really been, it's been a lot of work to get that up and running, but I'm so glad in person has gone so smoothly because I've really just been able to dedicate all of my focus to trying to get things up and running as smoothly as possible with the Adventum courseware. But yeah, in person, I mean, I've just been sharing my 2 daughters come home and I feel like they've learned more in the past 2 weeks than they have the whole time. That doesn't say much about me as a as their teacher while we were emergency learning, but that was really hard to do. And they're just, they go to bed saying, oh, I was talking about rules and laws today in school, or, they just share what they've done in math class. And it's so exciting that they're already learning so much.
That's fabulous.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can keep it that way.
Right. And I think kids are okay with the masks, even the little ones.
They seem to be doing exceptional. So I think probably the biggest struggle right now is with our middle school and high school. The days that students aren't in, just really trying to make the most out of those virtual learning days, really making sure learning's going on. I think the first week it was really hard to judge that. I think that's probably hard for 2 reasons. A lot sets the stage the first week, and yet the first week we also, you're sort of easing students into it, and you don't want to set the bar too high. You don't want to frustrate kids. So I think there was sort of like, you know, this feeling of finding the balance. And I know I've heard from some parents that have said, I thought that there was going to be way more on some of these virtual days. And, you know, I think for some kids there is, and for others, you know, especially that first week, you know, it was more of just sort of getting used to the routine of you're in school one day and you're not in school the next day.
Yeah.
But I've had lots of conversations with Bill and Jesse. I know that they are paying really close attention to the instruction that's taking place on those days. I've bought for every teacher in our district this distance learning playbook. This is written by Doug Fisher, Nancy Frey, and John Hattie. We've worked a lot with John Hattie's work in the past about assessment literacy and high impact strategies. And I'm going to be offering this book. Actually, I have an email ready to go out this afternoon to all of our teachers and any interested educational staff. If we have books left over beyond just our teachers, I have about 182 copies to give out. And then I've got a structured book learning that I'm going to be offering them as well. They can take just the book and read independently, or they can participate in the structured book learning. I'm doing it through Google Classroom just to model the use of Google Classroom and to learn more about it myself. And there'll be modules that they work through for teachers so that they can, you know, some teachers, you'll give them the book and it's great to have the book, and then, you know, they're so busy that they're going to set it down and not necessarily get to it. So some teachers really like just having, like, if I know I have to do this in a week, then I'm going to be more likely to read it. So it's modules. It's pretty quick and easy, but they can just post into the module the work that they've done. There's lots of different sections in here about self-reflection. So there's an opportunity that they can do this online, or they can take a picture of their work and submit it, and then they'll get work beyond contract hours for participating. They can get up to 10 because there's 10 modules in the book.
Great. Chelsea, do you have any questions?
Yes, I have a couple. I think you answered this one, Stephanie, so this is more of a yes or no confirmation. It's fine. But you said that there's not going to be an impact on students for having the teachers assign later because there's enough work for them to do, that they're moving forward.
Yes.
Okay, great. I was curious about how the learning liaison is connecting, because so the learning liaison is, the role of that is to assist with questions and concerns. Are those academic or technological or both?
They tend to sort of be all across the board. So the role of the learning liaison is really a family support. A learning liaison might get a technical question where they can direct the family to our tech support staff, or to an Adventum number that they can provide. We've provided it to families, but sometimes it's information overload. So the family might just reach out with a quick question, and our learning liaisons have sort of like a, if this is the problem, then do this. If this is the issue, direct them to this. So they've got a log that I've shared with them so they can help direct a lot of those questions. The other role is to help manage the special support services that students might receive, because some of our students are special education students. Some of them have a 504. Some of them are gifted and talented students. So we want to make sure that their learning liaison has an idea of what their Zoom schedule is, because sometimes parents, and this was a complaint of emergency learning, they don't know who to ask what. There's so many people communicating with them that they get confused, like what's happening when? Just one person, give me the information. So a lot of that information is going through the learning liaison. So I've asked that they sort of be the liaison of that information, and make sure that they're helping to coordinate those schedules. So if speech services, that person is going to be offering the Zoom meeting at the same time as the English replacement, because we have some students that aren't doing their English course through the Calvert Adventum in K-5. They might be getting a replacement class for special education. Then our learning liaison would say, wait a minute, you guys are both trying to do this at the same time. We've got to pick another time for one of you.
So, and they're doing that, and they're also meeting with students. Is this all happening outside of school hours because they're teaching? So
Yes. Yep.
How is that working? Just because if you need a question answered, that means you pretty much have to wait till the next day if you're keeping to a regular schedule.
Well, some of our learning liaisons are because they're writing to me during the day. And some of them, if it's something that they feel like the parent needs right away, they send it to me because I've got a little more flexibility and I can call the parent or I can email the parent back right away, especially if there were login issues. I did a lot of that last week, and I meet with the learning liaisons once a week. So that was part of our process. They do check attendance too. So at the end of each week, I've suggested that they sort of set up a process for that. But yes, they are receiving a stipend for this. So their work is above and beyond the scope of a typical school day, unless they have time during the school day to accomplish any of these pieces. But the Zoom meetings themselves to check in with students once a week are outside of school hours. I know that that was one of the, something that parents had brought up too, that, this should be within the school day. Unfortunately, we're not able to offer that, but our families also have a lot of flexibility on when they start the school day. There's nothing that says a middle school student has to start their school day at 7:30 a.m. If it works better for that middle school student to start at 8:30, they have that level of flexibility too.
You realize that means we'll never get that student back into a real classroom.
Well, except when we can't offer Adventum anymore.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, so I had a couple of questions. I wanted to go over a little bit more about not being able to add students later, because this is something that I'm a little concerned that parents may be comfortable right now, but if we start to see more cases, I think I'm a little unclear as to whether that would send us to yellow or where people might get concerned before we get to that stage. So I'm worried that there might be parents who would feel more comfortable switching. And you mentioned earlier today that part of the problem is that this is not a curriculum you can come into late, the way you can come into a classroom late. Are there any options that we could provide? Because I know there are a lot of online options. Is there anything we could provide that would be more flexible so we could allow people to join later?
I think, what I've shared with parents, there have been other parents with that concern too, like I want to get into Adventum now because, if we go red and there's lots of cases, I want to make sure that my child has something. And my response has been, if we're red, we will be closed, or if the cases increase, we'll follow our hybrid plan. I don't know really what else we could offer families that just start to get suddenly more nervous about things without the evidence that anything has changed. I don't have a great solution for that. Really, our solution would be the same as what other schools are offering for parents that are off-site, and that would be to homeschool.
Yeah.
What about students who join the district late? Because I know we always have a lot of movement between districts.
Again, it would either be in person or the option to homeschool.
Okay, so we don't have an option. Are the local districts, south and north, are they doing Adventum or something like that? So that could sort of move with a student?
The only one that I'm aware, well, I know of a couple districts, like South Portland is using Adventum, Lewiston is using Adventum. AOS 93, so the Booth Bay area, Great Salt Bay, they're offering Adventum, but Camden and Madomic are not. I think, Camden, again, for their remote learners, they have the cameras in the classroom for students.
Okay. Let me just glance at my list because some of the questions you answered or you're going to answer another time. And I assume in the October meeting, we'll get an update on student counts because I'm also curious how many kindergartners we're going to have this year. The other question that I had was more of a broad question. So I know that part of a responsibility of the board is to approve curriculum. And I'm wondering a little bit of how that works, just because I haven't been on the board long enough for us to have a significant curriculum change aside from this one. So I'm wondering how that works. I know during COVID it's a little different. So I'm thinking more like in general, what is our procedure? And then I'm wondering what our procedure is going to be for deciding the spring with Adventum, because of course we have to pay a new fee for that and sign up for that. So are we going to go through a process where the board actually authorizes that curriculum change? Because I'm thinking of the remote plan that we authorize is distinct from curriculum.
Well, I can tell you in the past how we typically approve curriculum. I don't know that I can really predict. I mean, I can tell you what I think the process should be going forward with Adventum. But what we typically do is we have a committee of teachers who are researching. I'm usually, well, I'm always researching, but I'm sort of like the lead researcher as we put a committee together. So for example, the most recent committee is our vertical math team. We spent a year raising questions, trying to determine, you know, what is really at the core of some of our math struggles in our district. And it became clear as we were looking at the data that we needed to have a more robust K-5 and consistent K-5 curriculum, because we have two different curriculums, and that was causing a lot of issues as students were coming together at the middle level, but also starting to cause a lot of issues with our really young learners, because as more teachers were coming into the district new to the curriculum, and we have significantly older materials on one side of the district,
Yes.
It made it really challenging for them to get the training that they needed to really deliver a sound curriculum. So really that first year is identifying the problem, and the second year is spent studying different curriculum materials. So we usually draft our look-fors, we draft criteria that we're looking for as a committee, and then we start the process of reaching out to companies and looking at samples and having webinars with the companies so that they can go over the materials with us. And I think our math committee established 4, and we did 2 of those reviews while we were still in person, and then suddenly we were like, do we finish this, or do, you know, well, we're going to need something. So we finished the other 2 while we were virtual, and then the process is piloting. So then we spend the next year piloting. It doesn't always have to be a year. I think we've done the process quicker than that before, but for something as big as a math curriculum, it does take about that long to really run through the whole curriculum. So right now for the math review, we're in the process of piloting those math materials. At the end, I put together a report with feedback from all of the piloting teachers and their recommendation. And the curriculum committee views that report. I share it, I go through it thoroughly, and then the committee just approves it.
And that's the board curriculum committee at that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the last one we did was the reading program.
Science.
That was what, 2 years ago, wasn't it?
I think reading was 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
Science was 2 years ago. Science, we did 3 pilots. So we compared 3 curriculum materials. We're actually only running 1 math pilot. So there's only 1 curriculum resource that we're looking at. That was sort of a strategic plan on our part as well. The resource that came in second wasn't even a close second. So we said, we're not going to waste anybody's time asking them to pilot this if we truly don't even think that we would want to go with something that comes in such a second place that's so far behind the first. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so primarily we're piloting, recognizing that this most likely is going to be our curriculum resource that we use. So we're really gearing this pilot towards what types of professional development and support will we need to ensure that are in place as we adopt it as a full district.
Okay, I think those are all my questions. I'll probably come up with more at another time.
Okay.
But that's all for now. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. I think in terms of Adventum, I'm just happy to share real quick. If we have students that need to continue Adventum for the second half of the year, I would not switch them to a new curriculum. We would simply continue using the licenses for the same number of students that started. I think what's going to be much trickier and very difficult to anticipate, because we just don't know what the landscape is going to look like at that point, is whether or not we allow new kids to join at that point and what the add drop is going to look like.
Yeah.
because that's something that I can foresee being a huge cost if we end up having a lot of families that are suddenly like, no, I'd rather do that instead. So that's something that I do think we'll need to think carefully about as a committee.
And
What
also
we'll
the finance
allow.
committee too, because that has a big, because we only paid for the first semester, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So there's a big cost, and my guess is we're almost out of money. Because I think we just have like the 600 cares, which I think is partially spent. So I think that is going to be a big issue. And I think it's worth having those conversations across committee because they do have some impact on the overall budget.
Yes.
Yeah, I know that one conversation that we had as a central office team was to use some of the CARES funding just to secure that cost, to not pay it up front, but to encumber it so that we know that, we can at least cover the same number of kids. But the big question is, what if there are others that want to join?
And with flu season, I could see other people being less comfortable.
So if I may, because I got to go to another meeting in 5 minutes, or 7, whatever.
Yes.
One statement to make is that I think the entire state, if not the entire country, the world will have to assess where our kids are at when COVID finishes. So let's say like next May, COVID is sort of taken care of by vaccines. We're not all vaccinated yet, but it's happening. So is there a percentage of kids who really struggled for whatever reasons and they're not quite ready for the next grade or something? So Stephanie, it's really a matter of assessment. And again, we'll be like every district in the country having to assess where our kids are at when we sort of emerge from COVID. The second thing is, Bruce, are you still online?
I think
I see the poll.
yeah.
Hey.
Oh, there he is.
Oh. So Bruce, real quickly, do you have any idea whether or not we're still looking at refresh next year, or is that like, it's off the table because of COVID?
So that certainly hasn't been a conversation that's started yet. I would hope that we don't have an impact from that because I wouldn't want to try to get this fleet of devices into a 6th year.
That's my concern, right? Exactly.
That's yes.
But so our process in that point is we can buy directly from Apple anyways. I've been negotiating with Apple directly as opposed to trying to tag along to the state MLTI plan because we no longer take advantage of all the extra things that they charge for in their program. And I think that we can get a better deal just by going to Apple directly because we don't need the wireless network that the state would provide with it and things like that. So we could get the devices at actual cost rather than the state fee added to it. So I don't think that process-wise that we'll have any issues negotiating a new deal with Apple in the spring. And I certainly hope that Apple can fill the order. And Tara hasn't had any issues with getting us parts or anything like that at this point. So, as long as we still have a good working budget at that point, I think that we'll be fine.
So that we'd go K to 12 with devices. We would not get the free middle school devices under that plan.
Well, we would still get the middle school devices from the state and purchase the Rex directly ourselves.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Before everybody has to go off to leave, I have sort of set up a schedule of meetings for us. October 19th would be the next, and then November 16th. I don't know how much further we go out, but I think we should absolutely set these meetings up. Now, December, it's the 21st, so I don't know how that's going to work. But I think if we get October 19th and November 16th set up for their dates, how does that look for everybody? It's the 3rd.
Great.
Is that okay?
Yeah, by the way, I think I just realized where Carol is right now. She's getting signatures to submit to the Rockland City.
Is she? I'm not surprised because I know she hadn't submitted her.
She was going to go as a write-in candidate. So since no one else is running, she would just need a few write-in votes.
Oh.
Well, yes, because she hadn't turned in her papers.
Yeah, she was she had 25 signatures when I signed a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, wow. That's difficult. Stephanie, any closing thoughts? And again, thank you so much.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like I said, I definitely feel for these families that are offsite. I think, there's no great solution. And we're going to certainly continue to work on making sure that we've got everything troubleshooted from our end and from the Adventum end so that at least the curriculum is running smoothly. But I think it's challenging all around for really all of our families, even though the in-person is going super smoothly, smoother than expected. It's just different this year.
Yes, it is. And it's a challenge, as you say, for everybody, no matter how perfect it looks.
Yeah, I want to thank you both, Bruce and Stephanie, and your entire
Yes.
staff for all your hard work. Just tireless, incredible hours and an incredible time. So thank you
Yes.
both for your stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you very much from the entire board. Oops, we just lost John.
All right, well, I'll end the recording.
Okay, thank you. So
All
now,
right. See y'all.
take care.